Okay, so again, I'm Mrs. Chilson. I'm the dual enrollment coordinator at Chattahoochee High School. I've been doing this now, gosh, I don't know how many years. Maybe like 6 years. I can't remember. Miss Blunt has previously been a dual enrollment coordinator, so she's my helpful go-to person as well. Please know that all of the counselors in the counseling office are very knowledgeable about dual enrollment. They all know what's going on and all the rules and how to approve stuff, and everybody in our office is fantastic and has lots of experience with dual enrollment. So please ask your counselor directly if you have questions. A lot of times students automatically want to come to me, but there's a lot of you and there's only one of me. So please go to your counselor to get your questions answered. Dual enrollment can feel a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of rules and expectations. It requires a lot of student responsibility. So as I go through this information in the PowerPoint, please know that there's no way that I can cover everything regarding dual enrollment. There's just too much to go through. You need to do your due diligence and research your college options, research your college choices. Please attend all of our help sessions. If you have questions, please come to the help sessions. We've lined them all up, so it's really easy to get assistance. And I've added some new things this year to make it even easier. But dual enrollment is only a small part of what our office does. And so please take advantage of these built-in help sessions if you have questions. Okay, this right here is the interest form. The interest form is on the Weebly. It is something that every student who would like to participate in dual enrollment needs to do the interest form. I'm going to turn my camera off here. Everyone needs to do a one-time interest form for the upcoming school year. Even current students need to do this. Current dual enrollment students need to do it. What's this going to do for the student is then starting tomorrow, anybody that has completed the interest form, or say someone doesn't complete it until next week, every day I will add students to the dual enrollment Teams portal. There will be a Teams for each of the college options. So there will be a Georgia State team and a Gwinnett Tech team, an Auburn team, if you want to do just any other college outside of Georgia State or Gwinnett Tech, I'll have a general one. I'm also going to have the Georgia Tech one. So when I need to post announcements or I need to give information or anything like that, it will all be listed there in the team. Students are very familiar with how to work a Microsoft team, so it shouldn't be any new things, but there will be assignments that have to be completed, and everything, all the steps and everything are outlined in the team. I will start doing those adding of students into the correct team starting tomorrow. What team do they get added into? What Microsoft portal will they get added to? Whatever they listed in their interest form is the colleges that I'm going to add to, So if a student says, I'm really only interested in Georgia Tech, on their interest form, they will only be added to the Georgia Tech team. They only do this one time. The student is the one that needs to complete the form. Please, parents, do not do this for your students. They need to take ownership of this process. I will not allow anybody to complete an interest form after March 31st. So that is the absolute cutoff to try and get paperwork and everything completed. That is the county deadline. So if it's not done before March 31st, you have missed the window to try and do dual enrollment for the coming year. And again, current dual enrollment students do need to complete this information. Okay, let's see. Geez. Hold on. Oh, I'm having some struggles. I'm on the struggle bus, guys. Okay, here we go. Okay, so some general information just about dual enrollment. It's really an opportunity for students to take college classes and have those classes count for credit at the high school as well as the college. So there are specific classes that are approved, so you can't just take whatever you want. There's certain things that are approved for funding by the state. Everything is state funded, which is why part of the process is doing a funding application. Participants have to meet admissions requirements for the institution at wherever they want to enroll. So if a student really wants to do dual enrollment through Georgia State University, there are specific requirements that they have to meet. The high school has nothing to do with any of that. So please know that, when a student wants to do dual enrollment, they have to get admitted at the college as if they were just a regular college student. Some of the requirements are a little bit more than if you were a first-time freshman because you're still in high school. So, you need to do your research about what is the best fit. Students can take these classes at the local college, so they can physically go to the campus and take classes, or they can do them online from home. I will say that the majority of our students do them online. These classes for dual enrollment are offered during the summer, the fall, and the spring terms. So there's options there. Students cannot take more than 15 credit hours in each semester, and for summer, it's really only 6. So that would be the equivalent of, in the summer, 6 credit hours at the college is usually no more than 2 classes, which is pretty much what a high school counselor is going to approve, is two credits total, basically, for summer. Now, for fall and spring, you could take more hours, and I'll kind of hit on the difference between being full-time and part-time later in the presentation. Most students take 1 or 2 classes, and most take them online, like I said, because of the flexibility with the high school scheduling process. All communication from the college goes to the student. It does not go to the parent. This is a big difference. High school, we're all about including the parent and making sure you're aware of the grades and making sure you're aware, oh, your student didn't show up to school today. You will not get any of that communication from the college. So, that's where your student really needs to be kind of on top of things and have the responsibility and the maturity to do a dual enrollment program, because it can kind of be a disaster if you're not that kind of student. Chattahoochee High School parking passes are awarded at the discretion of administration. So the counseling office has nothing to do with parking. So if you are trying to do dual enrollment and you need to, make sure that you can get to campus, you need to make sure that you get on the list to get a parking permit. It is imperative to read everything carefully. Lots of students, I could count the times, but students miss a lot of information because they either don't read their email from the college that is being sent to them, or they didn't read my emails that I send out, or they don't follow through on a step, and so everything is delayed. So everything with dual enrollment, you have to read the fine print. So grade level eligibility. Just so you know, 9th graders are not eligible to participate in the dual enrollment program. And when I say 9th graders, that would be like our rising 9th grade. So for next year, my current 9th graders are going to be 10th graders. And moving on to 10th graders are eligible, but there's a real limitation to what they're allowed to take. So eligible students can do a career technical college, basically a CTAE class at a technical school like Gwinnett Tech. So you could go to Gwinnett Tech and take, a business class or an automotive class or criminal justice or something career tech related, and can apply to do that. 10th graders are not allowed to do academic classes at all, core classes, unless they meet minimum SAT scores. So they have to have a minimum of a 1200 on the SAT or a ACT of a 26 on a single test administration in order to be approved to take an academic class at a technical college. And I say technical college because On this slide, it does say, yeah, you could do a university system of Georgia school. And those are your four-year institutions pretty much in the state of Georgia are your university system of Georgia schools, like a Georgia State. The difference is that Georgia State doesn't even allow a 10th grader to do it. They're not eligible. So Georgia State's pretty much out, even if you had these scores. So 10th graders pretty much have the option to do a core class at Gwinnett Tech if you meet the SAT or the ACT requirements that are on the slide. Please know that you have to send your qualifying test scores to Georgia Student Finance Commission prior to being approved for anything. So that has to happen. And there's directions on the Georgia Futures website. Georgia Student Finance Commission, if you're not familiar, is the overarching, they're the overseer of the website georgiafutures.org. gafutures.org is the site that all students, well, one, that's where you get your Hope Scholarship from, is the Georgia Student Finance Commission. So they control a lot of stuff, but one of the things that they also control is dual enrollment funding. And they will not fund a class, and they will not allow a student to sign up for an academic class if they don't meet those minimum standards as a 10th grader. Any 10th grader could do a career tech class at like an elective at Gwinnett Tech, for example. But, does that fit in the schedule? Does it work with your schedule? There's tricky things about electives because some of the really fun electives for Gwinnett Tech, for example, are only held in person. It might not work with the schedule. There's all kinds of things, or they're over at the Lawrenceville campus. The Alpharetta location doesn't house as many as the Lawrenceville campus. So it just kind of depends. But just know that 10th graders, there are some limitations that you're pretty much limited to an elective class, a career tech elective, unless you have the eligible scores. And then if you have those eligible scores, there's a process to get approved to go through that eligibility. 11th and 12th graders, really that's where all the bread and butter is for dual enrollment. Eligible students can take any approved dual enrollment course listed on the course directory. They're eligible at those post-secondary institutions. Pretty much you have your pick of where you would like to do the dual enrollment option. So that's kind of a nice, it's just nice to be able to have choices. Dual enrollment funding. So we'll talk a lot about funding, but the state of Georgia does pay for your tuition. It pays for your books. It pays for any mandatory fees. Some fees, though, however, are not paid. Like, for example, if you choose to take a science class, the lab fees for that science class will not be funded. If you take, I'm trying to think if there's any other, those are the science fees are really the ones that stick out to me. But some other funding details, students can't take more than 30 credit hours in total. So if you do dual enrollment 11th grade year and you do it 12th grade year, you don't want to go over that max amount, or else you're then having to pay for the tuition, the books, the fees, everything. Do your 30 credit hours. That's actually a pretty good bit. If you did part-time for 11th grade year and then part-time for senior year, it's plenty to get classes, taken care of. Students cannot be funded for the same course twice. And these are actually kind of new within the last couple of years. It used to be that a student could take, for example, English 1101, they would fail the class, and then they would want the state to pay for it again, and it would get paid for. It is not that way anymore. If a student takes the class and withdraws from it, or chooses, or doesn't pass the class, or whatever happens, the funding will not be paid for again. So that student loses the opportunity to take the same class again because the state's already paid money for it. Students who withdraw from 2 college classes at any point, they're not they're not permitted to continue in dual enrollment program at all. If at any point you withdraw over the course of however many years you do dual enrollment, say you withdraw one semester of one and then the next year you withdraw from another, you're out. You can't do any more dual enrollment. That's a state rule. Many colleges won't allow for a self-pay course if the student still has funding available to them through the state. So if you still have hours available for to be funded by the state, then you cannot self-pay for a course. So there's a lot of rules around self-pay. If a student does choose to self-pay for a course because they've run out of their 30 credit hours that they're allotted, and they want to self-pay for a course, there's special paperwork that's involved. It also kind of goes on the transcript a little funny, in my opinion. And then it will also be posted to the high school transcript regardless of the final grade. So even if you pay for the class, if you end up getting a C or a D or whatever, and you're not happy with the grade, regardless, it will get posted to the transcript. Only academic and career tech classes will be funded. So in the olden days, students could take anything. They could take an orientation class. They could take a study skills. They could take an art. It is not like that anymore. Only academic and career tech classes will be paid for. Institutions must provide, and this is a big one because we have a lot of students that take online classes, but institutions must provide required textbooks at no cost to the student. If the course textbook or the homework delivery method or anything is an online or uses online materials in lieu of a physical textbook, the institution has to provide access codes at no cost to the student. So we often will have a student like taking econ at the college, and the teacher, the professor, decides to do an online book. There is a code that goes with that, and it is paid for. So every other student that might be a traditional college student, they have to pay for that online code. Dual enrollment students do not. So make sure that, that's one of those things that you look into if you take an online class. There is a funding directory. I've got the website here. All of this stuff is on gafutures.org. They have a whole dual enrollment section on their website, but that specific directory shows all the approved DE classes for each institution. So it's like a drop-down menu. You can search each individual institution, see what would be funded. Just because, and this is a big thing, just because a class is listed as an approved course in the directory does not mean it will be offered at the college for the date or the time you want or anything like that. It may not even be offered at all. It just might be something that's approved, but the college has decided not to offer it yet. The other thing the directory sometimes will show you is the prerequisite for the class. I didn't put this on here, but it just came to me. Prerequisites. You have to meet the prereq to go into classes. So you can't just jump to English 1102 if you haven't taken English 1101 or met the proper AP test score to then jump to 1102. So there's things that you have to do in addition to getting through the enrollment process, and to actually register for classes. You have to make sure that you are choosing things that you can just go right into that don't require a whole lot of prerequisites. The sciences do require a lot of prerequisites. Some good candidates for dual enrollment. I'm going to cover this real fast. It's, you're a mature student, you're organized, you're self-motivated, you take the initiative, you kind of have a plan. You work ahead, you're on track for graduation. If you're the student that is always needing semester extension or credit recovery, or you're late with assignments, you're late with homework, you're not good with advocating for yourself, dual enrollment may not be a good fit. So you want to make sure that you're the type of student that can keep up with everything. You're good at, checking your email and responding and communicating with adults without your parents' support. These are big things to be a college student, because you're a college student when you do dual enrollment. What are some of the things that students say about dual enrollment? Flexibility. They love that dual enrollment offers the flexibility. It's free college. You can save some money. You can get ahead with credits. Most students like the experience of trying out college classes. They like to maybe leave school early or come late to school. It is a different kind of challenge than an advanced placement class. It can free up more of your time. The books are free. There's no charge for the mandatory student fees. You can also complete some prerequisites for possibly your college major. Now, that would depend on what college you ultimately want to go to, and want to land for your freshman year. You really got to do some research on that. Students also say, and I hear this a lot, I heard it a lot in December, because usually in December is when I find out who did not pass their fall class. So professors will not accept late work. I can't tell you how many students either turned something in late, or they missed their midterm exam, or they missed their final. And, there's limited grades with dual enrollment. So one assignment could be, 30% of your grade or 25% of your grade. And so if you miss it, that's a huge percentage. Professors tend not to take the late work. They don't like the excuses. They don't like the, having to make things up. You're a college student. Another frustrating part is getting through the process of being accepted to the college and getting through the process of actually registering for your college classes. That's like a two-step thing there. You got to first get accepted, and then you got to jump through some more hurdles before they're just going to allow you to register for a class. It can be, can make you feel a little disconnected from your peers at school, especially if you decide to be a full-time dual enrollment student where you're not even really coming to campus. And so if you're a senior, you might miss out on the senior treats, or you might not realize that, prom is coming up, or, like keeping in touch with all the details. You do need to check your college email daily, because sometimes students miss really important information. One thing that's kind of a negative is that every professor may do things differently, and that can be hard to figure out. You need to be, organized, because you're not going to get reminders. Professors also are not available like a high school teacher. There may be longer response times. You might have to make an appointment to see your professor during their office hours. So that's something to keep in mind too. So when we talk about the dual enrollment process, there's really two main things that have to happen. One, there's the high school process side of things, the paperwork that you need to turn into me, the county paperwork, the basic items. And then the second part is the college process. So the high school process are all the tasks that I have set up in the Microsoft Teams portal. I will assign you that portal after you do the interest form. So that interest form is required, like I said at the beginning. The contract, it's a long contract. It goes over a lot of stuff. You really should read it. I think a lot of students just sign off on it. Parents just sign off on it, and then they're frustrated because they're like, you didn't tell me that this was the deal, but it was written in the contract that you signed. So please make sure you actually read the contract. It's lengthy. It's probably like 7 or 8 pages. The Georgia Futures Funding application. It's really a 2-part funding application through Georgia Futures. The first step is that the student has to complete the application. If the student doesn't even have a Georgia Futures account set up, they have to set up the account first. The student needs to make sure to list in their, when they're creating their account, they have to list their high school. Make sure that you say Chattahoochee High School. There's also a high school in Georgia called Chattahoochee County High School. And I can't tell you how many students accidentally select that one, and then they're wondering why their funding application can't be viewed by their counselor. So please make sure you select the correct high school. You also need to put in your social security number. If you have a social security number, you need to enter it. If you do not have one, that is okay. There is a separate process for those students. If you don't have a social security card or an actual number, On the Weebly, there's a video directions on how to maneuver that piece if you don't have a Social Security number. But you first need to create your funding application by doing the actual Georgia Futures account. You create the account, then you can do the funding application. Okay, so you're going to get that done. Okay, the student also has to put in a parent email address. Then the parent's going to submit their portion of the funding. The parent has to approve it. All students have to have parent approval to do dual enrollment. So please check your spam folder, parents, if you didn't get the email from Georgia Student Finance Commission. It's not anything that comes from me. Georgia Futures is a total outside entity, but they're the ones that control the funding. So you definitely need to do that. And the other part of the high school process is uploading at some point after you do go through the whole process, you'll upload a screenshot of your schedule for each semester when you get registered. So those are the tasks for the high school. The college process is that you have to apply to the college. That is different than doing the application for funding. Those are two separate things. You've got your funding application and you have your application to the college because you're applying to be a college student. That is not something that the high school can do for you. Some students are like, oh, well, I did the interest form, I'm signed up. That is not how it works. You gotta maneuver and get through all the different steps. So you'll do the application to the college. You also have to do all the supplemental materials. So the application is one piece. What happens is the college is going to get your application, but they will not make a decision about your application until they get all the other things to make a complete file. So maybe that's test scores, maybe that's your transcripts, maybe that's your AP scores. There may be additional things you have to submit. For Gwinnett Tech, they require a dual enrollment tuition acknowledgement form. So there's other things that you may have to submit to make a complete file. They will not accept you as a student until they get everything. So then you're going to get accepted, hopefully, and then you're going to follow through on all the college processes. So maybe there's an orientation that you have to do before you can register. Maybe you have a hold on your account preventing you from registering until you do some other stuff. So you've got to manage that college process all on your own. I haven't, none of the counselors have any access to that portal. We don't have any availability for to be able to see any of that. So the dual enrollment structure is such that in this upcoming school year, all dual enrollment classes will be scheduled off campus. That means that your student will take their class either in person at the college, or they'll take it online, but they'll do it from home. Students will need to provide their own transportation for any remaining Chattahoochee High School classes, okay? The only exception to that rule is Georgia Tech's distance math year 1 and year 2 programs, because we actually, believe it or not, we have to proctor all of their exams. So they're actually much more connected to our teachers here. So Miss Weil and I, go through the whole process of proctoring, scanning, uploading their exam. The distance math classes are only held during first period. To be a full-time student for dual enrollment, you have to take at least 4 college classes that would total at least 12 to 15 college credit hours. So basically between 4 and 5. Most students wouldn't do more than 4. It's rare that we have a student take 5 college classes. But all classes are taken through the college. They can be online or face-to-face. No courses, if you do 4 college classes, no courses have to be taken at Chattahoochee. The student can still be enrolled at our high school. They're fully eligible to participate in clubs, extracurriculars, sports, events. You're still a student here and all that, but maybe you're not coming here, you're going to the college to take your classes. For part-time, that's anything less than 12. So if you take 1, 2, or 3 college classes in a semester, you would be considered a part-time student. And you have to be enrolled in 6 classes total between Chattahoochee and the college. So if you take 1 college class, then you would take the other 5 here at Chattahoochee. If you take 3 college classes, then you would have 3 here at Chattahoochee. The total schedule has to total 6 classes. I guess the exception to that would be a senior who is able to do a course reduction, which is a whole nother process, but most seniors know that they're eligible as long as they're on track for graduation, and there's a whole contract for that. That's a separate meeting. But anyway, you have to coordinate those dual enrollment courses with the high school classes that are offered. You have to allow for safe driving time if you're going to be coming to campus later in the day or that kind of thing. You're not allowed to enter or exit the high school campus multiple times a day. You can't come and go as you please. It's either at the front of the day or it's at the end of the day that everything needs to be grouped together. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about the timeline. March 31st, that's the big deadline for summer and fall. You have to have the following things completed by March 31. The earlier, the better. If you plan to take a summer class, you really need to get on the ball, like really soon. You would submit the Fulton County contract. You would submit your college application. You're going to submit your funding application. And then at that point, we have what we need. You've met your minimum requirements to continue with the process for dual enrollment. Okay. Over the next April, May, June, July, you need to get to know the college academic calendar. When are their registration dates? When is their campus, when do they have their final exams? If it's a spring semester, you need to know, when is their spring break? Because college spring break is different than high school spring break. Or, there are different days off that they have. You need to check their academic calendar. That's where they publish all the important dates. When can you withdraw and it's just a W? When can you just drop it and it doesn't count towards anything? You could still pick up a high school class. So get to know your academic calendar. But the other things that you need to do is finish all the remaining college acceptance and registration processes. So you've turned in your contract and you did your application, but that doesn't mean you submitted your transcript or your test scores or your immunization records or your lawful presence or did all of these other things that the college wants you to do. This, of course, listed on the screen. It's not an exhaustive list. You have to check with your potential college, but those are things that it's okay if you don't have your test scores by March 31st. You can still turn them in later. It will delay your acceptance. You cannot get accepted to schools until they have a complete file. So it's better to have everything in as soon as possible. But the minimum stuff you have to have done by March 31st is the dual enrollment contract, the college application submitted, and the funding. Those are the things that really we have to have in order to start working through some details in our office. Also, end of July, students who have been accepted by the college and have actually registered for their college classes by end of July, that is when counselors come back to the building from summer. And this ensures that we can then make an appointment with each student. We allow, the way we've done it in years past is I will send out kind of an invite if you've registered for college classes at by that point to do a quick scheduling appointment with your counselor where we kind of can mesh everything together. This ensures that the high school and the college classes kind of go together and it makes sense because we don't even know where everything is going to be offered in our building until summer. So there's no way to really plan ahead on this. You just definitely need to be flexible. Only students that have officially registered for a college class will have courses changed in their schedule from these placeholder titles to an actual college class that is in their schedule that you're going to earn credit for. If you have not done that, then we basically, by August 1st, if you have not registered, you will be removed from dual enrollment stuff and you will be placed in a high school class, okay? And this does happen to a good many students who don't get all of their ducks in a row and get everything scheduled. So, this is the timeline that you need to work ahead of deadlines. Like I said, you need to get to know the academic calendar. You need to be flexible through the process. It may be that, you told your high school counselor you want to take psychology at the college. and then you go to register for psychology and all of the slots are full. If that's the case, you got to make a change. You need to pick something else and let your counselor know and so forth. So there's a whole process to all of this. And it's a lot of planning ahead and doing your best to plan ahead as much as you can. When we talk about the high school process, you're going to do, again, the interest form. Then I'm going to add you to the Teams portal, and then there's assignments listed in Teams. A lot of information is detailed in the contract, like I said. The dual enrollment funding application that is in that you got to do, you only do that once for the year. It's for the whole year. If you're a current dual enrollment student, you have to do it again for next year. So your dual enrollment funding is only good for 1 year, and then your counselor has to reapprove everything, and that means you've got to do a new application. These are just tips, again, about Social Security number. Oh, make sure you use your legal name and not nicknames on anything, including your college application. That can bring up some issues when your transcript gets sent and the transcript name is something different than what you put on your application. There's going to be a holdup. So make sure that everything is done legally. The college application process is detailed in the team. You're going to upload, if you're taking a summer class, you're going to upload your registration once you get registered for an actual class. Same with fall. And then the spring registration, we don't worry about spring until like October because you can't even do anything for spring until at that point. When it comes to the dual enrollment contract, we get a lot of questions about page 3. And page 3 is if you include the cover sheet, but it's like there's a chart that you have to fill out. On the left-hand side of the chart over, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but on the left-hand side of the chart is what courses you're going to take at the high school. Okay, what are you taking at Chattahoochee? And on the right hand, you're going to list the college class that you intend to take for that semester. There's a summer schedule, a fall schedule, and a spring schedule. Whatever you list for the fall, like this student is AP Lit and Forensic Science, they're going to TA for Miss Smith, they're going to take AP Spanish, they're going to take AP Psych. That's 5 classes. Their 6th class is this statistics class at the college. Okay. When we come to spring, the 5 classes from fall should be pretty much the same 5 classes for spring because AP Lit is an entire year. Forensic Science is an entire year. The only thing that should change really is your college class. What else are you taking for spring? We need to know now, whatever you list on your contract, that is what your counselor is going to approve for funding. Okay. And some colleges will not let you register for a class that your college, your high school counselor has not approved. So anything you list for a college class in here has to be accurate. Okay. If you want to list on here backup options, that's fine. Write whatever you want. Type in whatever you want. But I need to know what the plan is, or your counselor needs to know what the plan is so that we can make sure we're funding the appropriate classes. And why that's so important is that, for example, we don't work in the summer. So if you're trying to get registered in the summer, guess what? We are not here. So it needs to be whatever you put on your application and your contract. Okay. The college process. In here, I've got all the links. I'm going to make sure this PowerPoint gets posted, but all these links are also on the Weebly already available. But each college, like I said, they have their own specific application and processes, and you need to follow the directions of what they tell you to do. What I have found is I can lay out everything, and then the college will go and change something midstream. So please know that, I don't work for the college. Or at least anymore, I don't. And I think that they do a lot of updating of stuff. So, you've got to get that information from the website. These are a list of common dual enrollment classes because every student is like, well, what should I take? What do I need to take? You really need to pick things that are going to, satisfy a graduation requirement. So I mean, it's fine to do your electives and that's fine, but a lot of students are trying to, take care of their English or their social studies requirement or whatever. These are common classes that a lot of students take. So for English, one thing to know, and I'm going to take a sip of water. But one thing to know is that this American Lit, the English 2130, that's American literature. Now, as you know, American literature is a class that is offered in the high school sequence in the junior year. So junior year, that is when students tend to take American literature. Okay. I know that may not be true for everybody, but the vast majority of 11th graders have to take American Lit. If you choose in your 11th grade year to not do American Lit here and you want to start English at the college, know that you have to do English 1101 and then you would have to do English 1102 before you ever get to English 2130, because 2130 has prerequisites of 1101 and 1102. I don't love the idea of students putting off a grad requirement. I mean, you can certainly do it, but it's not a great way to do things. The other thing about American Lit, if you take it at the college, and students always claim that they were never told this, but I'm telling you, you're being told right now. American Lit, any student who chooses to take American Lit through the college must take the end of course assessment. So that EOC has to be taken at the high school, and it counts 20% of the grade on the high school transcript. It's a mandatory state requirement. You cannot get out of it. It is the one class that requires the EOC to be taken. So if you choose to take American Lit at the college, then you have to do the EOC with us. And the problems that we have run into with that is I had some students do it over the summer. We do not get EOC scores back until probably September. Okay. And so the problem with that then is that if you're a senior and you don't have your EOCs done until then, and we don't get it on the transcript, you may not have an accurate transcript to send off to colleges. So, keep that in mind. There's a lot of classes to take through dual enrollment. And if you really want to do American Lit, then you gotta kind of work through the prerequisites. For math, lots of students might take the 1001 or the 1101, the quantitative reasoning or the math modeling. The college algebra 1111 at Gwinnett Tech, students have no problems just signing right up for that class, no issues. You want to take it at Georgia State, there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through before they'll approve a college algebra or higher. So the other class that students can take without a lot of prerequisites is this college statistics. The 1401 is Georgia State and the 1127 is Gwinnett Tech. Right here under social studies, this is one of our more popular areas that students want to take a college class. Maybe they do their U.S. history through Georgia State or Gwinnett Tech or wherever, or they want to take world, like they didn't do AP World History, but they want the college credit. Then they do it, through dual enrollment. The other thing is econ. Econ is a popular class to take. At Gwinnett Tech, you have to have some prerequisites prior to taking 2105 or 2106. But they do have, I think it's 1100. It's not listed on here, but there's an intro class that students can take that would meet the econ requirement for high school graduation. Sometimes we get transfer students and they have never had government. And so transfer students, that's a great class to take through dual enrollment, because then, American government for us is a 9th grade class. And as a senior, most seniors don't want to be stuck in a 9th grade class with freshmen. So, that's another one to consider. For sciences, you have to meet their prerequisites. There's also usually a lab class that is a separate class that you have to register for. So when you register for, like, for example, biology 1111, you also have to register for the lab that goes with it. And those class times may be scattered. It may be hard to get them to work with your schedule. That's what we have found to begin with. Oh, goodness, I'm hearing the band. The percussion. Okay.
I'm checking on that whilst.
Okay, hold on one second. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but if y'all can please pause your questions. So Miss Blunt's going to go check on the whole percussion situation going on in the cafeteria. You know, my office and Miss Blunt's office backs right up to the cafeteria, and that's where they practice. So it's it's tricky. Okay, moving on to electives. There's a lot of electives to take. Students take a lot of humanities type stuff, psychology, sociology, criminal justice classes, accounting. They could knock out, 2 accounting classes if you think you might go into finance or you want to go into accounting or anything like that. Lots of available, the public speaking requirement for college that you ultimately might have to take later. So those are things to consider, okay? So please know that there are a lot of courses to take. This is not an exhaustive list. There are tons of classes available. You need to consult the directory to see what's funded. You can consult the college's course catalog to see what that class actually is about. And you can, definitely come to one of our help sessions to talk through eligibility or how it would work or anything like that. All kinds of courses that are listed here will transfer from a technical college to a University System of Georgia. Technical colleges fall under a different accreditation than University System of Georgia schools. So that's the only, thing students need to know, is that there are certain schools offered at Gwinnett Tech that are certainly available to transfer to any number of universities in the state of Georgia. Okay, gonna move on. So you do have 2 schedules with dual enrollment. There's the college schedule, where, you're following your college expectations. There is a deadline to register for college courses no later than August 1st, so that we can make sure they're in your high school schedule properly. If you have not registered by that deadline, you will be put in a high school class. Again, got to check that academic calendar. So important. Classes for college are usually 2 days a week. If you're doing them online, then you've got to make sure you get through all of the, there's a lot of things that get posted by online professors, and they expect you to do it in a timely manner. And we got a whole list of students this semester that had not logged in to their online class within the first few days or didn't follow through with the first week of assignments. So what did that professor do? They dropped them. They dropped them for the class, and they cannot get back in the class. So then those students, I get the list, and then they have to go back into a high school class. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that does happen. Make sure to sign up for full term classes and not mini semesters. Full term classes go from the start of the semester all the way to the end. Most colleges do offer mini semesters, but that is an accelerated pace of a class. It's going to be the same amount of work, but in half the time. It is not recommended to do, especially if you're a first-time dual enrollment student. If you're intending to register for online classes and not in-person classes, make sure that's actually what you signed up for, because now in education with college classes, there's so many ways that colleges offer their program. Maybe it's a hybrid where you come 1 day a week at 1 p.m. and you're doing stuff online. If that's the case, you probably can't sign up for that because at 1 o'clock you might be in your 6th period class. So, those are things that you want to keep in mind when you're doing the college schedule piece. For the high school schedule, in the spring, you identify what your courses are going to be. You put it in the contract. We add placeholders. So once we have your contract and your submission of your college application, we will then add a placeholder to your schedule. We're going to take out the high school class and add this random placeholder that looks kind of funny in your schedule, or really your requested classes. At that point, you're going to upload your college schedule to Teams no later than August 1st. But of course, if you can do it before then, that's even better, so that your counselor can then update your high school schedule. And then we're going to remove that placeholder and put the real class in. Just because you have the placeholder added to your high school schedule does not mean you are registered for that class. It just means you gave me your contract. So please make sure that you've actually, applied, you've been accepted, and you've gone through all the processes for getting registered with the college. That is all stuff that you would do on your own. Okay, I know Miss Blunt had to run out, but she is coming. So thank you for bearing with her while we work through this. Okay, I always feel like dual enrollment night is like a marathon. There's so much stuff. But this right here is an example of a schedule. I pulled one from a couple of years ago. It's actually one of our staff kids that graduated. But he took college English first semester, and he took accounting first semester. And then second semester, he decided he was going to continue the English and knock out English 1101 first semester, and then he did English 1102 second semester. And he was like, you know what? Senioritis has kicked in. I'm kind of done. Let me do a course reduction. So he then shortened his schedule by a little bit. So as you can see, he didn't actually come to campus until third period. Okay, so starting at third period is when he arrived. And then Nick's handling it. Oh, thank you. Okay, so then he left at the regular end of the day, but he just came late every day. He came in time for third period. So the student took 2 college classes in the fall, 1 in the spring. There really is not one way to do dual enrollment. Sometimes students do the afternoon, okay? Sometimes they're off 6th and 7th, or they're only off 7th, or they only do 1 class, or they take 1 in the fall and they're here for their whole spring. So you can kind of mix and match depending on your need and what your interests are. Every student must have a lunch period in their schedule. So you can't think, oh, I don't need to have that. The high school counselor does try to, if it's possible, to bump it up against a lunch. But like in the case of this student, I couldn't give this student third period lunch. If I had been able to do that, then AP Econ would have had to fall somewhere else, and that wasn't available. So, sometimes logistically things don't work out the way we want. You have to be flexible, like I said. Don't get hung up on where everything is going to fit right now, because counselors don't even know what the master high school schedule is going to look like until we get back from our summer break. We don't get into the business of all of that until mid-July. So when we come back in mid-July, that's when I'll send out an invite, and anybody that's actually registered, we can then piece it together with the student. Okay, so let's talk through Gwinnett Tech admissions requirements. So Gwinnett Tech, it is open to 10th through 12th. Again, 10th is only eligible for career tech electives unless you have certain SAT or ACT scores. A complete admissions file, you got to have the application, you got to have the funding app, you got to have the test scores or some other option like that. Gwinnett Tech will actually take a high school transcript as long as you have a 2.6 or higher. They also require a thing called the dual enrollment tuition acknowledgement form. That is, I have added that form into Teams. So you just have to, get that submitted to the college. Anything in Teams regarding the college gets submitted to the college. Do not upload anything about applying to the college to Teams. That is just directions. The only thing I need to know in Teams is that you have submitted your application. That is what will check you off my list in my book. Everything else can be done through the college. Current spring students, and that should say spring 2023, they don't have to reapply. Current students do not have to reapply to the college. The only thing you got to do is the contract and the funding and upload your schedule, basically. These are important dates for Gwinnett Tech. Summer registration begins on, it's so early, but March, basically. Summer classes will begin March 22nd. As you can see, that is before our last day of school. Fall registration will open after spring break. And at that point, if you've been accepted and you've jumped through all their hoops, then you could get registered before you leave for summer, which would be ideal. If you can do that before you leave for summer, then that would ensure that your high school counselor has done your funding and gotten things kind of lined up the way they should. Taking out the placeholders, adding in the actual name of the class in the requested courses. Of course, the schedule doesn't run till summer, so we can't know where everything will fit, but we would know, what you're actually going to take at the college. Okay, so GSU, you got to be a rising 11th or 12th grader. That's one of their requirements. You have to be on track for graduation. You do have to have a minimum of a 3.0 GPA as calculated by the university. They use pretty much your core GPA or your Hope GPA. So if you don't know where you stand, you can, after you create your Georgia Futures account, you can look at your Hope GPA and see, am I at a 2.5 or am I at a 3.0? Because it all depends. They did deny some students last year because they did not meet the minimum requirements. Now, some students have asked me in the past, like, is there a limit on the number of students they'll take? It is not like that. If you meet the requirements and you get your paperwork to them on time and you follow their process, you will be admitted. There is not a, they're only going to take 100 of our students or whatever. If you meet their requirements and you get it all submitted, and you can be a dual enrollment student. And that's the same with Gwinnett Tech. If you meet their minimums, there's not a cutoff or like a quota that they'll take. But a complete file for Georgia State is the application. You have to submit your official high school transcript. They need your funding application. They need official test scores. They have started saying that they're going to take PSAT, but the students we tried to submit PSAT scores for, they never really went through. So I feel like there's a lag in information maybe in their admissions office. But Georgia State's going to do a help session next week, so we can get some more feedback on that. Math placement. If you are wanting to take college algebra, then you have to either have really high SAT, ACT scores, which are listed there, the 680 or the 29, or you need to take the AccuPlacer math placement exam and score a certain score on that in order to be enrolled. The only math classes that you're allowed to take without any extra testing or anything is the statistics or the quantitative reasoning. Those are the 1001 or the 1401. Those are the ones you can do. Okay, GSU admission tips. You got to read everything very carefully. And the first 3 questions on the application are very important. And one of the application questions that they ask, one of the very first questions that they ask is if you're applying as a degree-seeking student. The answer is no. You are applying as a non-degree seeking student. If you answer this incorrectly, you go down their path of questions that do not apply to you. Okay, so make sure that when you are answering their application questions, you make sure that you put you're a non-degree seeking student, because dual enrollment students are non-degree seeking. It can take Georgia State up to 21 business days to process a document that is sent to them. So you really need to make sure you get everything in a timely manner, because 21 business days, not weekends, but business days, could be an entire month, basically. So, the sooner you can get rolling on things, the better. For current Georgia State students, the only thing you got to do is the funding application to lift the hold to get registered. And you've got to do My Stuff in Teams. You got to do the contract again and the funding again and upload your schedule. When it comes to Georgia State's important dates, for summer of 2023, the schedule of classes, like what they're going to offer, will be out in February, so very quickly. Anybody can look at that, and you just have to Google schedule of classes GSU, Georgia State University. GSU is also Georgia Southern, so make sure you say Georgia State. Registration will open for summer on February 27th. However, you cannot register if you have not been accepted and done all of their next steps. So, it's not a quick process. So, just make sure you're following along. but that's the soonest that you could register for summer. The first day of class is June 5th. For fall, the schedule of classes is available in March 13th. Registration will open on March 27th. And keep in mind that every area high school around here, like Northview kids, Alpharetta kids, Centennial kids, everybody is trying to get into dual enrollment classes. And so the classes do fill up. So please make sure that you get, through the process of the acceptance and the admission stuff as soon as and quickly as you can. Classes will begin on August 21st, okay? We usually start earlier. High school classes start earlier, so that's why we need to make sure everything is kind of set the way it needs to be in July. Georgia Tech. The big thing about Georgia Tech that I need you to know if you're planning to apply to any of their programs is that you are still required to meet my high school deadline for paperwork by March 31st. March 31st, you need to do the dual enrollment contract, the funding application. Those are the big things for me. Because Georgia Tech's application for admission does not open at all until May 15th. It opens May 15th, it closes June 15th. If you miss that timeline, it's too late. They are not going to take a late application. It is a very, very competitive program. They will need your high school transcript that includes your spring grades. So students need to use the unofficial transcript that's posted in Infinite Campus under the Documents tab. So after your spring grades roll, which is usually the very first week of June, you can then upload it to your admissions portal. Okay. So usually what happens is you apply to the college. This goes for Georgia State too. You apply to the college, and then after you submit your application, they send you information in an email about how to access your portal. And that is where you can upload more documents like the transcript or whatever. If you have attended, if you're trying to do Georgia Tech and you've done a dual enrollment class previously through Gwinnett Tech or Georgia State, you have to send them the official college transcript from other institutions. So, because when you do the application, you say on there, well, I've previously been enrolled at Georgia State for English, and they're going to be expecting that transcript. They are not going to admit you until they have all parts of the application, including other transcripts. Dual enrollment applicants to Georgia Tech must have an SAT or an ACT test score to complete the process, okay? Official AP exam results have to be sent by their deadline. All of this is on the Georgia Tech website. All you have to do is Google, and I go there all the time, Georgia Tech dual enrollment. It will pop up the whole website. Georgia Tech usually also has a prospective student meeting sometime in late April. I haven't heard about the date, but I will add that information into the Microsoft team as soon as I get it. The math options. We have a distance math year 1. It's highly competitive. You have to have completed AP Calculus BC in order to be eligible. It's usually scheduled for first period because Ms. Weil has to proctor everything. Same with the year 2, okay? Year 2, they can watch it daily at a time that works with their schedule, but all the exams are written exams, and that Ms. Weil or Mr. Cinco or even me may proctor, because then we have to upload them into their portal. They do, the lectures are pre-recorded, but students may choose 1 or 2 times a day for the live studio sessions, and those are the times listed on the slide that they do them. They are also offering a computer science program. There are specific requirements for this. Again, it's on their website as to what they require. Usually you have to have done, I think, 2 AP classes in math and science in order to qualify. But it's an online course. It's completely online. In the first one, the 1301, you're learning Python. And in the second one, it's just a totally different kind of program. But if you are in AP Comp Sci A here at school, that is the equivalent of the 1301 class, the first one for them. And then, they do the next one after that. So there are certain prerequisites. You have to score a 4 or a 5 on the AP Computer Science A exam in order to register for the 1331 computer science class. So there's certain protocols in regards to Georgia Tech. If you want to be a tech full-time student, we had several this year that were admitted to the full-time program. It is highly competitive. All classes are taken typically at Georgia Tech. You could possibly do them online, but the offerings online are a little bit limited. I would also say the biggest difficulties that I found with my students this year is that they had real trouble even getting into the class that they wanted to take. Either because they didn't meet the prerequisite, or dual enrollment students at Georgia Tech do not get priority registration. They are the last ones to register, and so classes fill up quickly. Also, many classes are not funded. Like anything in the business school is not funded. Regular psychology is not funded. So there's a lot of classes that are just not available. Okay, so as grand as it sounds to be a full-time tech student, there's a lot of hiccups that come with the program because it's just not as flexible as some of the other programs. Let's talk about Auburn. Auburn is a new addition as of last year. So this year we have a student doing it, and you still have to do the interest form for me. You still have to complete the Fulton County contract. The biggest thing about Auburn is that it is not funded. You have to pay the money to do the program. You would pay the tuition and the fees. It's $550 per course, and there is an enrollment deposit of $250, and there's an application fee of $50. Your counselor has to submit a support form, has to do, send off your transcript to them. You have to pay for books and supplies. The only exception to this is that if a student is on free or reduced lunch, then the tuition can be waived, but books and supplies, fees, everything else cannot be waived. You still have a team that you have to submit stuff to for the process. A lot of students are interested in the Auburn dual enrollment because they are offering an automatic admission guarantee if you do their program in the way that it's laid out. So it's only open to 11th and 12th graders, but for the automatic admission guarantee, students who complete at least 2 classes over at least 2 semesters, you have to do basically 6 credit hours in 2 or more terms and get a 3.0 or higher. Then you automatically will be accepted as a freshman at Auburn if you choose to go there. So that's something that you might want to consider if it's worth it to you to, you really want to go to Auburn. So, you can keep that in mind. There are a lot of other college choices. I mean, there are so many colleges in the state of Georgia that offer dual enrollment. You need to investigate those processes on their own. I know some students last year were really interested in doing Kennesaw, and they looked up the whole thing. They went through the whole process. They were ready to register, and then they changed their mind. So, I don't have as many contacts. I can't keep up with the amount of colleges that do dual enrollment. So anybody that wants to do a dual enrollment choice outside of Georgia State and Gwinnett Tech, Auburn, and Georgia Tech, that's fine. But you need to keep your counselor in the loop with your process. You still have to do the contract. You still have to upload the screenshot saying you applied to the college. You still have to do a funding application. But all the other stuff of what the college requires, because every college is different. Every college may require something different. If on the interest form you tell me that you're interested in Kennesaw, then I'm going to put you in this general team and you're going to follow through with the steps that I require, and you're going to upload all of the different directions and stuff, but you'll be responsible for, keeping your counselor up to date with your process. A lot of the colleges do require an official transcript. Georgia Tech does not, but Georgia State and Gwinnett Tech and Auburn and Auburn wouldn't go through this process. Any in-state college, like say you do want to do Toccoa Falls or Georgia Military College or Kennesaw, West Georgia for dual enrollment, whatever. Any in-state college, if you need an official transcript sent, you are going to go to gafutures.org. You're going to sign into your account. And when you sign in, there's a thing called My High School Transcript. You're going to go there and make a request from there. I have uploaded screenshots of what everything looks like into the Teams, so you can see how to request a transcript through Georgia Futures. It will not go through the counseling office. When you submit it through Georgia Futures is the one that sends it off. Okay, let's talk about grading and credits, because this came up a lot after the fall semester. But when you sign your contract and when we get information, like when we get a transcript from a college, it is a letter grade, okay? So an A is a 95, a B is an 85, a C is a 75, a D is a 70 for us. If you get an F or a WF, meaning you withdrew after the deadline, that's a 60, a failing grade. Dual enrollment classes are a full credit, most of them. So when you take English 1101 or Psych 1101 or World History 1111 or any of those classes, those transfer as full credits for us. So you're basically doing a full credit in one semester. So if you don't do well, that's a full credit hitting your transcript. If you get a C, it's like 2 C's, because when we have the grades on the transcript, everything is a 0.5 credit. But when you do dual enrollment, it's a full credit. So, for example, Fulton County does add 7 points to final passing college course grades. So if you get a D, you get the 70, but then you get the 7 points added. On the transcript, it will show a 77. If you get a 95 because you got an A and you get the 7 points added, it's a 102 on our transcript. Okay. So, the example in here is if a student earned a B, they get the 85 unweighted, and then you add the 7, it's a 92 on the high school transcript. Hope Scholarship for core dual enrollment classes receive a little bit of a bump, just like you would if it was an AP class, okay? So for the rigor. Grades earned in DE classes will count towards a student's initial Hope GPA and eligibility. Okay, they do not count, however, in the maintenance GPA that happens after you get to college. So, it's not a constant reminder of how you did or whatever. Final grades for all dual enrollment classes will be posted on the high school transcript. So that's important. One of the things about the grades up here is that, I had a student come to me and they were like, Ms. Chilson, you got it wrong on my transcript. I really got a 99 in the class, so I should have really gotten, a 106 on my transcript. And while the professor may have awarded a 99, on the college transcript that we received, the official documentation, it's a 95, it's an A. Okay, so just know the A is the same thing as a 90 in the class. If you got a 90 in the class, when I get the transcript, it's still going to be an A, which is a 95 and gets the 102. Okay, so you've got to know, that you don't get the actual numeric grade that the professor awards you. College withdrawals. So if a student withdraws from a college class, and that does happen, the student will earn a W on their high school transcript. It does not impact the GPA. That withdrawal needs to happen in the right timeline because there's a certain period of time that the college allows for just a W. And then later in the semester, it turns to a WF. So when you're past the midpoint in the college semester, the student earns that WF, which is the same as an F on the high school transcript. Okay, that's why the academic calendar posts all those really important dates. You should mark them on your calendar because that's where, you'll be able to keep up with, when your exams are and when things are kind of taking place. If a student withdraws at any point, again, from 2 dual enrollment classes, they're no longer eligible to participate in dual enrollment. So just keep that in mind. If a college class is listed as 1 to 2 semester credit hours, and those are usually like a science lab, a lab class is going to be 1 or 2 semester hours. You're only getting a 0.5 high school credit for that, whereas for the actual 3 to 5 semester credit hour class would translate to a full credit on our high school transcript. Passing grade, an example, passing grade in English 1101 fall of senior year would satisfy your 4th English credit because it's a full credit that you're earning. College classes are typically 3 credit hours and you earn a full credit in 1 semester, which is how students can really accelerate if they want to push ahead. Colleges also have this thing called satisfactory academic progress. And that really is defined by their institution, and it determines whether or not you're eligible to continue in the dual enrollment program by the college. So occasionally I will get an email saying that the student did not meet satisfactory academic progress because their college GPA was too low. So maybe their college GPA, they only got Ds, or you failed one and then you made a C in one, or whatever. If that's the case, then you don't meet their minimum requirement to remain eligible in the college side of things. So sometimes a college might have additional requirements. An ineligible dual enrollment student would be required to return to the high school the following semester, and it's possible that their graduation status might be at risk. Colleges might also require a student to withdraw at the end of the semester if they're not meeting their policies. Low grades definitely can impact graduation requirements, hope eligibility, and even college admission opportunities. So for example, our seniors, they send off applications a lot of time in October, November, and you might get a provisional acceptance from a college. And then you don't do so well that fall semester in your dual enrollment class. And then that college wants a mid-year report come January. And it's possible that the college comes back and says, we are rescinding their admissions because of the grades. So it is important that you take it seriously because it can have an impact on all kinds of things. The example at the bottom is that students take 2 dual enrollment classes in the fall, they make a C and an F, and when it averages together, it's a 1.0 GPA at the college. That's not high enough to continue the program, and you would have to come back to Chattahoochee to finish your classes. Things that we cannot manage at the high school. We cannot manage your college schedule, course availability. It's your responsibility to know when the breaks and the holidays are, or that college classes aren't always offered at times that align with our schedule, and popular course times might fill up quickly. The acceptance process. We cannot manage if you're having problems with admissions, your application, that they didn't receive your transcript, like all of those kinds of things, all of that goes through the dual enrollment office or the admissions office at the college. If you have holds on your account preventing you from registering, all of that goes through the dual enrollment office at the college. That is not something I can log into your college account and fix. Some holds can be cleared just by following the directions that they give you, but you got to read all the details, all the fine print. Communicating between you and the college about individualized situations, whether it was an absence or you didn't get your textbook or you missed a quiz or anything like that, all of that goes from the student to the college professor. Transferability of courses taken through dual enrollment. We can definitely get you graduated. We will get a student graduated, but we cannot, you know, we don't have all the information about every college class and whether or not it would be accepted at South Carolina or Clemson or Harvard or Brown or Florida State or whatever. I mean, you've got to kind of do your due diligence to see whether or not the college classes that you choose to take would be accepted at that institution. Almost every institution has a thing called an articulation agreement where they will, you can tell them or look online to see what class you're going to take, and they'll tell you whether or not it's going to be accepted. Sort of like AP scores. They will tell you whether or not a certain AP score would be accepted for credit. So we're here to advise you, support you, encourage you through this process, but the vast majority of stuff is done with the college. And you will be an independent college student while you're still in high school, and you must meet the same expectations as an undergraduate student. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with dual enrollment. Okay, our last slide is all the help sessions that we're having. You might want to take a picture of this screen. And starting next week on Tuesday from 5:30 to 6:30 on Teams, there will be a Georgia State University help session. Okay, so GSU admissions is going to kind of go through their process and what you have to have and any of the pitfalls. I've asked them to do like, the main things that students run into with issues with their applications or the timeline of things or how long it might take to get an acceptance, all of that kind of stuff. So GSU is on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, Gwinnett Tech is having a virtual help session. So the dual enrollment office, Ms. Howell, she's in charge of dual enrollment at Gwinnett Tech. She's going to come on to a Teams call with me. And if you're applying to Gwinnett Tech, you should come out on Thursday from 5:30 to 6:30 on Teams, log in, and she'll go through all of the things. You can ask all of the questions. So if you get started on the process, maybe over the weekend, and then you run into a pitfall, that would be a great session to come to because they can walk you through any questions. Then we're having another help session on February 28th. This will be open to students to come to the counseling office during their lunch period. So third, fourth, or fifth period, pop in with your questions. If you have your contract, you're not sure what to write on that page where you're supposed to tell me what you're going to take. All of those kinds of things will be offered at these help sessions. Same with March 21st. We'll do another round of a help session in the counseling office. Just come into our flex room. If you have any questions, we'll be available. But know that March 31st is the absolute deadline to submit your contract and submit a screenshot that you have actually applied to the college into your Teams portal. If that is not done, you will be removed from Teams and it's too late for summer and fall. Okay, so please make sure that you can get all your questions answered prior to March 31st, because as I said at the beginning, dual enrollment is unfortunately, it's a small part of all the other stuff that the counseling office does, but it does seem to monopolize a lot of our time, even though we have other responsibilities. So please utilize the help sessions. If you have questions, come to a help session. It is better than sending an email and us going back and forth or popping in on a random day. We're trying to wrap up a lot of other stuff. We're moving into scheduling for next year. We've got some other things on the plate, not to mention the crises that come in the office or the priority items that we have to touch on a particular day. Okay, so that is the vast majority of, and I realize this is a lot. It's a lot of information. In fact, before this even happened, I was like, Miss Blunt, don't you think we should take some of this stuff out? Because it's a lot. And she was like, but they're just going to ask it later. So at least this way, if you need to go back and review any of the slides or anything, you have it. Again, it is recorded and it is something I'll get posted to the Weebly and to the website in case you need to go back and review anything. Miss Blunt, I have not even looked at the chat. I'm kind of scared to look at it. But is there anything, Miss Blunt, that you see that we have specific questions still coming in?
Can you hear me?
Oh, let me turn up my volume. Hold on. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, you can hear me?
I can.
Really common question that a lot of people are answering are asking is, what is the deadline for applying for dual enrollment? March 31st is the deadline for students who want to do dual enrollment in summer or fall 2023. By that deadline, they must have applied to the well, first you have to actually do the interest form. And
Yeah.
you can't expect us to get you into the teams and for you to do all the steps if you do the interest form on the 31st. So at the very least, a couple days before that, do the interest form. Do the interest form now. Please do not wait until March 28th.
Yeah, it's literally a couple of questions. I mean, it's super easy. The interest form is really easy to do. And then as soon as I get that, every day I will be adding students to teams. So right now, I probably have 170 students that have done the interest form. I will get them all added to teams tomorrow. And then they will have access to all the information. The more colleges you put, the more teams you're going to be added to. So that's where you need to start narrowing down the priority of where you're going to actually apply.
Okay. A question that I'm getting quite a bit, and I know you have answered a number of times, is about, okay, the recording is going to be posted on our dual enrollment Weebly. If you scroll up further in the chat, I've posted our Weebly link a number of times. It's Chattahoochee, full name, de.weebly.com. A lot of what people are asking about the interest form, and does that mean they are like committed to doing dual enrollment? No, they're not committed. It's literally just, I want more information. Please add me to the teams. Let me see what steps I need to do.
Yeah, no, any student that doesn't follow through is just going to be removed. Yeah. So it can't hurt anything by doing it. It doesn't commit you to anything. It's just giving you information.
Parent is asking, can a student do the interest form even if they have decided, even if they have not decided which college they want to do for dual enrollment?
I'd prefer to list at least one. You need to list one. Yeah.
Because it's not a general teams that they're being added to, it is a school specific teams. So if a student completes the interest form and does not list a college, we're not going to know which teams to add you to.
And honestly, just so y'all understand, I had to do it this way because Chattahoochee probably has one of the higher participation rates for dual enrollment. So because of that, teams can only accommodate so many active students in a class in teams. And we go over the required number. And so I have to start separating you guys out so that I don't max out our numbers to be able to use teams. In the past, we used Naviance, and it's a little bit more complicated, and students really hate it. So I am trying to switch to teams because it's more familiar, and we can actually do announcements and things like that. Everything, kids can set up their notifications and that kind of thing.
A couple different people are asking, where is the interest form? It is on, I just put the link in the chat.
It's on the Weebly in like every spot.
It is literally it's like every page on the Weebly.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's also on the scheduling website that Mr. Abelcop created. So it's on that page as well. But yeah, it's just a Google form. It's real quick and easy. And as soon as and it only needs to be done once. So if I get multiple students or a student that's done it like 5 times, then that messes my process up a little bit. So please just do it one time.
Someone wants to know, when is the interest form due? At the very least, a couple days before the 31st, but please just go ahead and do it. It is the quickest thing. It might take you 2 minutes to complete. So do not delay doing that, because then that's just gonna, all the steps that you have to do, it's just gonna delay everything. How can a student add another college to the interest form? I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, if you already did the interest form and you want to add another college, I'd prefer that you just send me an email if you've already completed it and you changed your mind. Or you can stop in and see me on a Thursday. Thursdays are best for me. So that's what I would suggest. I'd prefer you not do just another interest form every time you want to change your mind.
Let's see. Someone asked, in the interest form, did we need to put our school email or the email we check the most often? Whatever
Yeah,
whatever
go
you check
ahead.
most often.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the one you check most often. The other thing, oh gosh, I didn't even mention this in the presentation, but this is important. But when you are applying to a college, you should not use your school email for anything. And the reason why is because then when they send you an email back, Fulton County will block it because it's an outside entity. So make sure that on college applications, and even for me, I prefer a personal email, the one that you're going to check. I can always add the school email if I need to, but because it's easy for me to look up. But for college admissions, you really need to be using your personal email because you won't get any communication if you use your Fulton County one. It will go into a void.
Yeah. A student is asking, saying that they're in Georgia Futures and there's no Hope GPA for them. That's you need to talk to your counselor or something about that. That's not necessarily a dual enrollment question. It could be that your full name is not listed. It
It's
could
really
be
possible, this happens more often than not, that at
Mhm.
some point the parent did not allow the school system to have
Mhm.
your social security card on file. If your social security card is not on file with the school, then you can't see your Hope GPA. We can't upload a transcript for you. There's like a lot of steps because Hope Scholarship is all connected to that.
Yeah. Parent looks like is asking for rising junior SAT scores. Are SAT scores mandatory? Not necessarily. That this is why we want you to go look at the individual college websites to see all the different forms and versions of test scores that they will accept for dual enrollment. Ms. Shilson also has it listed on the Weebly. Even if it's not specified on the Weebly, at least it will give you the link to go to the college. Each college is different and what they will accept as far as which test scores, what actual number test scores they will accept, if they will accept anything in lieu of test scores. You already addressed that. We just addressed about the SAT scores. If a student has taken the PSAT, will he be able to complete the form now? Anyone can complete the form no matter if testing has been done or not.
Correct.
The test scores and testing, that does not necessarily have to be done or sent to the college by March 31st.
That's an additional supplemental document.
Yes.
The thing that has to get done is the actual college application and the Fulton County dual enrollment contract. Those are the two things that have to get submitted by March 31st. Everything else can happen later, but the longer you wait to do everything else, the delay in the acceptance, you won't get accepted right away. Your funding won't be going through right away. Like there's a lot of other steps. And so the sooner you can get things done, the better.
A student is asking, can we still sign up to do DE, AP, US history? Okay, well, clarification.
Yeah.
DE is different than AP. Dual enrollment is college, AP is high school. Can we still sign up to do that even if we didn't take the SAT yet or have a bad PSAT score? So you're not signing up to take it. It's not like, oh, I can just go sign up for a Fulton virtual class and I'm taking it. You have to apply, submit all the documents, submit all the stuff for the high school, and then the college will look at your application and decide if they are going to admit you. After you're admitted, then you can register for the class. So I think the short answer is you can still start the dual enrollment process even if you have not taken the SAT or ACT yet, or if you are not happy with your PSAT scores. There are other ways to go about doing this. You might want to go ahead and choose a time to take the SAT or ACT. Some colleges will even allow the AccuPlacer, but you do have to apply to the college first before you can go take the AccuPlacer on their campus. And we are at the, okay. Yes, could a student simultaneously apply to 2 colleges for DE since they're not sure? whether the college will accept or not. Yes, students, we have students do that all the time. They, may say, I ideally want to, go through Georgia State if possible, but just in case my SAT score isn't high enough or whatever, they'll go ahead and apply to Gwinnett Tech just as a backup. I answered this a
And
little
I don't
bit.
know if you answered, Ms. Blunt, the question about, you can put multiple colleges on the same contract, the dual enrollment contract. You can list 2 colleges on there and just complete one contract that gets uploaded to 2 different teams.
Mhm.
That's totally fine.
Yes.
That's okay. It's not submitting the contract or not knowing what you think you want to take or those kinds of things that we might run into more issues.
And we always, every year we have a number of students who do, say, college English through Georgia State, while they're also taking, say, distance math at Georgia Tech. So
Correct.
a student can be simultaneously enrolled at 2 different colleges for dual enrollment, taking different types of classes. So yeah, that's completely fine too.
And same with the funding application in Georgia
Uh-huh.
Futures. You can list multiple colleges. So you could list Georgia Tech and Gwinnett Tech and Georgia State. And, they're available for the counselor to pick what you're going to do where. But you gotta make sure you add stuff. I will say that sometimes with the funding application, I don't know if you already said this in the chat, but the student selects the wrong college. Like instead of Gwinnett Tech, they chose Georgia Gwinnett College, which has a similar name. Or they selected Georgia Southern University instead of Georgia State University. We can't do funding if it's not the right college. So make sure that you are, really diligent in choosing the correct thing.
2 more questions. Is dual enrollment or are dual enrollment courses or AP courses better in general? There's not just one answer for that. It's a very individual decision. Plenty of colleges are, considered dual enrollment and AP to be, relatively equivalent, but there's other colleges that specifically would like to see AP. So it really is, this is one of those situations that we always encourage the student and the family to reach out to any, potential college that the student is considering applying to during their senior year to see if there is a preference. But here at the high school, there's just so many different options for students to complete so many different levels of courses, so many different types of courses through so many different ways. There's not a better version for us or for high school. It really all has to do with, your individual goals as a family, where you intend your student to hopefully go to college, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I just pulled up a share screen where you can see the Weebly. And on the Weebly, there is this blue item right here on the front page that says dual enrollment interest form for the 23-24 school year. You click on that, it takes you to the form. It is also posted here on the second screen, on the apply and course options. It's posted there. It's posted on the Auburn First site. Click here for the interest form. On every single one of these links, you're going to find the interest form. Okay.
Pick a tab, it's going to be there.
Yeah. The best thing I can tell you is make your best judgment call on where you'd like to think you want to apply so that I can get you in the right team. If later you change your mind, you're just going to have to communicate with me so that I can switch it around. But it just would create more work on your part, honestly.
Yeah. And the last question that I'm seeing right here is, where's the contract? The student has to do the interest form first, then they're added to the teams, then they can access the contract.
Correct. You're not going to have access to any of the paperwork until you do that interest form, because that's why we kind of have to keep track of who is interested in the opportunities.
Question just popped up. Is dual enrollment self-paced? Absolutely not. Dual enrollment is fully paced. I mean, it is just like a regular class in high school. There are going to be deadlines each week. There are going to be assignments that are due.
A professor assigns work. And like I said earlier, I mean, we had several students this semester, I couldn't believe how many, took an online course, and I think they just thought they could do the work at any time. But ultimately, the professor dropped them as a no-show because they had not completed any of the initial stuff for that class. And so then I got emails one after another one day, like 10 kids all got dropped from their classes this semester because they weren't doing their due diligence with their online work. It's not self-paced. A professor's assigning work and you gotta do it. Now, does it have to happen at a certain time every day? No. It may be that you are doing it at 8 p.m. at night or 3 p.m. in the afternoon or whatever's convenient for you, but there is a deadline associated with the work.
And kind of piggybacking off of what Ms. Chilson said, every semester we have kids who, and it's usually the kids that are taking online classes because they are not as as frequently in communication with their professors as students who are taking face-to-face classes are. They forget, there's a midterm that they're scheduled to take, and it has to be done between Thursday at 12 a.m. and Friday at midnight. And they just completely forget about it. They get
just
a
didn't do it.
complete zero. The professor is not willing to go back and allow them to retake it. I've had students' grades drop 2-letter grades. So like a B to a D, an A to a C, because they missed taking an exam. So this is absolutely not self-paced. You definitely have to
You
stay
gotta
on
stay
track
on
with the
top of it.
assignments.
Yeah.
Yes. Someone's asking, can you still take dual enrollment if you haven't taken the SAT or you haven't gotten a right score? We
Tech,
answered that.
yeah, I mean, Gwinnett Tech's the easiest option if you haven't taken tests. Georgia State has opened up some more options to do like the AccuPlacer on their campus or submit a PSAT score. But even the PSAT score, I mean, Miss Blunt, I mean, you tried submitting PSAT scores for a kid and it never really went through. So I don't know that I would rely on PSAT.
That would be like an absolute last resort. Even though it clearly says on their website, and even though the dual enrollment office clearly, clarified for the admissions officer I was trying to get in touch with, yes, PSAT scores are accepted. However, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever admissions processor happens to get your admissions file. And if they happen to not be fully in the know about PSAT scores now being accepted, it could be, denial. So I would not rely on PSAT scores. And yes, so Gwinnett Tech would probably be the better option if you haven't yet taken the SAT or ACT, or you're not happy with your score. Both Gwinnett Tech and Georgia State will allow the AccuPlacer, but you do have to submit your application to the college first before you can even take the AccuPlacer. Okay, a couple more came in.
Hayden, that's a good question about the IEPs or 504s. If a student has an IEP or 504, every college campus has a disability services office that you would have to go as the student, meet with them, take your paperwork, and then they have to approve any accommodations. That is not something that automatically rolls to the college or that we send them at all. That is completely something the student would have to do.
Yes. Couple other questions. Spring break is different at different colleges, so they might have class or assignments due during Chattahoochee break. Yeah, that's one thing that we address in the dual enrollment contract, that our spring break is in April. Many college spring breaks are in March. So if you have spring break plans, the following spring, then you need to either go ahead and have a conversation with your professor the first day of class and, make sure that it's going to work for you to be, either not attending class or can I work ahead or whatever it is. That's something, because you are essentially dual enrollment, dual types of students. You are a Chattahoochee student and a college student. So this is where you have to manage working with a professor, talking with them, addressing any issues about non-attendance or anything along those lines. And the last question I'm seeing is the PSAT or SAT score mandatory for the dual history courses? Okay, so when you're applying for dual enrollment, you're not applying to a class. You're applying for general admission for dual enrollment. So I want to apply to Georgia State for dual enrollment. I'm going to submit my application. I'm going to submit whatever, versions of test scores that they will accept. There's a list of them on their website. And then you're admitted. And then from there, you go register for classes. So there is some sort of test score that you're going to have to submit for admission. Let's see. You already answered that about the IEPs. Can I still be added to a Gwinnett Tech team if I did not check the box in the interest form? Yes. So only if you have already done the interest form and you just need to add a college or change the college, then you can email Ms. Tilson. Do not email her saying, hey, I did the interest form. When am I going to be added, or anything along those lines? That's going to flood her email inbox. But after
And then
you've
I'll
done
never get to anything I need to do.
exactly. Do the interest form. Wait a day or two. You will be added. She is very timely in all of her tasks. So it's not going to be an immediate add, but within 1 or 2 school days, you would definitely be added to the teams that you requested to be added to, and then you can go from there.
Okay, so I
Okay.
think we've answered most
Uh-huh.
of the questions. I'm going to stop the recording. And